TradPub question: if a book dies on submission, could the author self-publish that book in the future, or is there a waiting period before you can do so? Excellent question, and it depends on a couple things. In theory, yes, you can try to self-publish a book that has died on submission. For anybody who's new to the traditional publishing space, submission is the period after you obtain a literary agent, but before a publisher buys your book. Typically, your agent will send out that book to a lot of editors at these big house presses, and sometimes they all say no. When you've gone through all of the appropriate presses that your agent would want your book at, you end up with a book that's died on submission. This period is a very nebulous one for an author because oftentimes you've put a ton of work, often years, into one novel, and having it die on submission basically means that for now, there's nothing to do with it. So you put it in your hard drive away on a folder and you just hope for the best and think that maybe you'll pull it out again someday. I've had multiple books die on submission. 3, in fact. 4? 3, I think. They're all still sitting on my computer waiting to be dealt with, basically. To be honest, looking back, I'm glad that they did die on submission because they all had issues that definitely needed revising, even though my agent and I went through multiple rounds of revision with them. They're just not to the caliber of the stuff that I'm writing right now. So whether or not you can self-publish that book kind of depends on your relationship with your literary agent. I'm a big fan of open communication between literary agents, and it shouldn't be ignored that oftentimes your literary agent has put a lot of free work into that novel. They are doing that work on the expectation that it will sell and everybody will make money, but oftentimes that doesn't happen. So if a book dies on submission, there's kind of like this added addendum to it where your agent has put in a lot of free labor for a book that they now will not see any profit from if you self-publish. In that way, a lot of authors will choose to just keep their books that die on submission in a folder because they may want to try and resubmit them to those presses later on. If you have a breakout novel that ends up selling really well, all of a sudden presses are going to be banging on your door saying, what other stuff do you have? And that's where those other books could come into play. It's very easy to pull them out of this folder and hand them to a press later on if they've never been published before, but if they've been self-published, now they come with a history of sales that may or may not impress the press. Impress the press. So stupid. However, if you have a really good working relationship with your literary agent and you're already trying to do other things on traditional publishing submission, the agent may be totally fine with you taking that book to self-publish. To be clear, there may or may not be a clause in your contract that says whether or not you can, depending on what you've signed with your literary agency. I'm a big fan of the option of being a hybrid author where you should be able to take your books and self-publish them if they died on submission. But it depends on the agency that you've signed, it depends on the contract that you have with your literary agent, and it depends on the relationship you have with that agent. It's almost a slap in the face to take a book to self-publishing for some literary agents, so I would definitely talk to your agent beforehand before making any decisions. I hope that helps.